Gotham Season 2, Episode 13, A Dead Man Feels No Cold. I think they did quite a few interesting things in this episode. We got some more relationship stuff between Lee and Jim, which I thought actually was pretty entertaining because that's always been one of the things I liked about Lee as a character is that when things weren't exactly how she felt they should be, she wouldn't take any crap. She would do what she what she wanted to do. And when Jim is freaking out, which he of course he had good reason to freak out because he's like a woman I'm with and also my child, that'll make you freak out and be like overprotective, of course. But she was really awesome in this episode. I love the fact that she's like I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like especially considering she wanted to do her job. So she's like, no matter what, I'm going to go with Nora, and that's how it went throughout the whole episode. And then by the end, she basically confronts him about the death of Galvan. It's like whatever you told me wasn't the truth, and of course he doesn't say what the truth was. I feel like he might, but I don't know. I feel like either he's gonna say it at like the last second, or it'll be too late and she'll actually leave him, and then he'll say it afterwards, and they'll kind of figure out whether or not they're gonna make it work. But I really enjoyed their storyline throughout this episode. Just like it was a good parallel as well, of course, for the main story with um, Victor and Nora, because and it was one scene in particular at the very end when Nora's or not Nora, but when Lee was like, "I envy the relationship you had." I was like, man, that's kind of crazy that she would say that to the guy, about this relationship where one of the people is freezing people to death. So it's like it's crazy that she feels so hurt about her own relationship that she'd envy a relationship where a woman ends up killing herself, because that was after Nora switched the vials and they found out. So it was just like, like this was pretty crazy. Or maybe it was before that. I think it was before she knew what was happening. But it was still like, he was freezing her to save her life, but he still killed a bunch of people. And she's like, I envy what you guys have. And it was like, man, that says a lot. So I thought it was very interesting what they did with Lee for this episode. And I don't know where it's going to be headed, but I'm pretty sure it's going to get pretty bad. I think she's going to find out the truth because he'll probably tell her, or I doubt there would be any reason for her to go back to Arkham Asylum and randomly hear from Penguin. But I really did like what they did with their story. I like what they did with Mr. Freeze, which I thought was very interesting because like the one thing that I did like, oddly enough, I actually didn't like the fact that he survived, because when they did it initially and Nora switched the vials and then she cracked and she died, I was like, and then he killed himself. I was like, I can't believe they found a way to make that story even sadder than it was in the comic books, because that's their whole storyline. And I mentioned for the last episode, I kind of wanted them to survive because their story is sad enough as is. And I guess technically in this case, it still is really sad compared to the comics, because typically, Nora's alive, she's just in the vial, like, which they kind of showed at the end. Like, that's basically where she is throughout all of the comics. So it was kind of like, it was just really interesting. I was like, I can't believe they somehow made one of like the saddest stories ever even sadder. But then ultimately he ends up surviving. But Nora is still gone, so it does make it a bit sadder. But it's not as devastating as like they both actually died off. But it is exciting because they do keep Freeze around, and they did change it, of course, because Nora's gone. But they did kind of fall a little bit more in line, of course, because if they killed him off, that would have been a huge shift from the comics, because there'd be no Mr. Freeze. But the fact that he survived, and then we got to see him with like the white skin and stuff, and he has white hair instead of being bald. But I thought that was actually really cool. I was like, okay, so they're keeping him around. Something's gonna happen. They mentioned the fact that him changing on a molecular level means that he can't survive, in normal temperatures, just like the comics. So they adjusted his suit and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I like that, because despite what they did change, it's always mostly been the fact that Batman fights him. Is never, that's always like his backstory is that he's trying to save his wife. But ultimately, it's like, well, Batman fights him, so that's why people really care. So I thought it was really cool that they did it that way. I don't know where I saw a picture of that. I was like, I don't know if that's him or not, because it was some random guy with like white hair, and obviously he wasn't in the suit. And I think it was like, I didn't really go to the picture. I just saw it, and I don't remember when that was. But once I saw him, I was like, okay, that was him. And it was like a big picture of people, but I don't remember who else was in that picture. So I'm very curious who we're going to be getting in these next couple episodes, because we have people in vials. I mentioned last week for the promo for this episode that the guy in the first vial looked like the dude from Game of Thrones, and I'm pretty sure that's him, unless that's some crazy distortion. That's definitely the guy from Game of Thrones, but it could, I don't know, it could be some crazy distortion, but it looks just like him to me. Or Simon from Alphas, cause, or not Alphas, but from Misfits, because that's what I know him as. But it was interesting. They had him in there. The person behind him, I'm pretty sure, was meant to be Jerome, and then we had someone with one arm, which may have been a villain from another episode. I just can't remember. And then there was someone in the final tube as well. So they have some stuff planned for sure, and I'm very excited to see what they do. I don't know if we're going to be getting characters like resurrected and crazy stuff like that, which I assume we will, because otherwise there's no real point in having people in tubes. If that was definitely Jerome, which I'm assuming it was, it's not like he had any sort of powers or anything like that. So I do assume that they just be bringing him back. I mean, I guess they could do experiments to, I guess, somehow transfer his craziness, which that in itself seems really weird. But this is also a show based off a comic book, so they could probably pull that off. They do the cheesy stuff sometimes. I feel like that would just be like old school comic villainy type stuff. Like, we're gonna transfer the crazy from this dead body to a living body. That just seems really, old type of evil to me. But they could do that if they want to. I'd prefer if they just were resurrecting people. I feel like somehow that's less crazy to me. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to what they're gonna be doing. Like I said, I really enjoyed what they did in this one. We got to see quite a bit of Bruce in this. He was basically absent. He wasn't at all in the last episode, even though we saw Selena for like that one scene with Butch and Tigress, although neither of them were in this episode. Um, Bruce has decided, especially now that he's found out who killed his parents, which may or may not be correct. I'm still wondering if it's going to be the right guy, or if Alfred just got some information that's like possibly correct. But he seemed pretty certain like that was the person. He did very specific research, so it seems like we actually have the guy who killed Bruce's parents, and his drive now is to kill this guy. And we see from the promo that that's kind of going to be the big story for next week, and I'm very curious how they're going to play that out. Of course, we have Penguin in this episode, which I thought was really good. Him being tortured, and Jim like just selling him down the river, which I thought was like, he's got to protect himself. But he's like, I'm being tortured and stuff. He's like, well, that's what you do. You're crazy, right? She's trying to help you. And it's like, man, Penguin just felt like he was just tossed aside, which was kind of funny. But he also gave Hugo Strange a bit of a clue. I don't know if he believed him when he said that, but he got that really interesting look. He was doing something with his fingers where he was moving like different fingers at a time and stuff. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure he believes, what Penguin's saying to him, because mostly because it's Hugo Strange. I assume he believes him, so he's gonna do something and try to blackmail Jim later in the season, maybe, or sometime next season. But I really enjoyed what they did in this episode. Nice, plants for what they're gonna be doing in the future. They're starting on the stuff with Penguin. They introduced the stuff with Bruce officially getting his revenge. Um, the stuff between Jim and Lee, I don't really know where that's gonna be headed, but I'm assuming it'll be really, really bad before it gets better. And then we probably, unfortunately, with the way they ended it, I'm sure we won't see like actual villain Mr. Freeze anytime soon. That probably wouldn't happen until like the next season. Maybe it would happen this season, because they even changed like the subtitle, because it was Rise of the Villains for the first half, and now it's Wrath of the Villains. So we might see him actually resurface as a villain for an episode with whatever weird group that Hugo Strange is going to be making. But I don't know. I feel like he probably won't show up for quite a while, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later, because I'm actually excited to see that. And maybe, I don't know what reason they'd have for him to have to go bald, because he has hair. It's not like he's older and lost his hair. So I don't know what they would do with that, but I'm excited to see him come back into the show. Definitely curious what they're going to be doing as far as Indian Hill and the bodies in the tubes. And I don't know what to expect with Penguin. I don't know how he's going to escape, but I think Penguin and Riddler are like the two people that they're making sure they kind of stick through as like these are going to be villains that survive to the point of Batman. So I don't know how he's going to get out of that unscathed, and he might not. I was thinking when they first started, like this might be why he's so insanely violent, in the future. Because right now he's violent, but he kind of just breezes through stuff if he can. He tends not to do the whole violence thing. It's just like, all right, I can do this without any issues. That's what he does, and I feel like him kind of getting tortured might make him actually crazy and super violent, and sort of bring out the more harsh side of his character. But certainly looking forward to all the stuff that they kind of introduced in this episode. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Before I ask like my normal little question of the week, I thought this last week, and I didn't mention it because it was kind of no point. But the actress who played Nora, I knew I recognized her. I was like, I know I've seen her before, and so I looked her up after I did my review for the last episode. And I found out why I recognized her is because she was in the show, the American version of the show, Being Human, which was on Sci-Fi, and I think that went off like 2 years ago or something like that. So I was like, I knew I recognized the character, so it finally hit me. And the funniest thing about it is that her character in Being Human is also named Nora. So I thought that was really funny. When I realized who she was, I'm like, as soon as I saw, because I typed in her name and I just saw her, without like the makeup and looking all sick and stuff, with blood running, down her nose and mouth. I was like, oh. And then I instantly remember, like, I'm pretty sure her name was Nora in that too. So I just wanted to mention that because that was just interesting. I was like, I knew I recognized her, but it would have been pointless. It would have been that random thing in the last review because I was just like, I know her, but I don't know where from. So she was in the show Being Human, which I really loved. Like it just went off like, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago. So that's why I didn't really recognize her. Plus, I haven't seen her in. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. Unfortunately, she's a really good actress. Even though she only got like a minor bit in these 2 episodes, she's a great actress. Check out Being Human if you haven't seen it. Really good show. Both versions are good. But as far as questions for this week, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about how they ended with Mr. Freeze actually being Mr. Freeze. Like his storyline in general, because they did a slight alteration with killing off Nora, which was a great scene. I thought he was going to lose it, actually. I thought he was going to go nuts and try to start killing people. But I love the fact that he got really mad at Lee, and she was like, I didn't know. And then it was kind of like, he just thought about it, like, she's telling the truth. And he instantly calmed down. I was like, okay. And I was like, that was actually kind of cool, because he is kind of a genius type character. And the way they do it now, he's clearly a genius, because he's making, like, freeze rays and crazy stuff. But I just kind of like that scene, but ultimately, I love what they did with them. Um, it's kind of in the middle for me because it was like I thought it was really epic when I thought they were both dead because it was even sadder. But him surviving is still really awesome because then we get normal Mister Freeze, and we still had like a crazy transformation, which I didn't see coming. I legitimately thought he was going to be dead, and his wife still is dead. So it does kind of change his character a little bit, and I'm interested to see how they do that, kind of once he comes back into the series. But definitely want to know what you guys thought about how they kind of changed Freeze as a character in this universe, and of course what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.